Welcome to Rose Red Homestead. It is the day after Thanksgiving, or more commonly known as Black Friday. And since I don't like to shop with a bunch of crowds, Black Friday is the perfect day for us to stay home and deal with the leftover turkey. So we are going to make some roasted turkey broth when we continue in just a moment. So usually after Thanksgiving, or when we've had a big turkey anytime during the year, I will just take all of the bones and dump them, or the whole carcass, and dump it into a stock pot, throw in some vegetables, and make a big pot of turkey soup. Today I'm going to be just a little bit more sophisticated. We are going to do roasted turkey broth. And I've already gotten started. Here is what is left of our 20-pound turkey. This is the carcass. I've taken all the meat off. Jim took a lot of it off, and I took some off early this morning. And in this roasting pan, I have put all of the bones. So here is a drumstick bone, with here's a thigh bone. I've got wings in here, pieces of skin, anything that we can render in the oven. So I'm going to finish up doing the carcass because this piece is too big, of course. So this is the breast part, and this is the back side, the backbone. And so what I'm going to try to do is cut this in half horizontally, and then using my cleaver, I may cleave off smaller pieces. And then we are going to put this in a 425 oven, and we're going to roast these leftover bones and little pieces of meat for about 20 to 25 minutes. We want them to brown until they just sizzle. So here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just try to cut right down here through this part of the turkey, separating the breastbone from the back. And when I do as much as I can with whatever muscles I may have or not, then I just break it. And I see some pieces of dressing still left in here, and since I don't want that dressing in our broth, I thought I got it all last night, but I guess not. I'm just going to put it in the sink. Okay, so this didn't come all the way through, so I'm just going to take my cleaver. My hands are very greasy, so I'm going to rinse them. And I'm just going to see if I can cleave this. Ta-da! Okay, so this goes right here, and then the back, there is a natural joint on the back about right here that you can usually just twist off. And so we're going to put these pieces in here as well. Now all of this other leftover stuff, this is mostly dressing, so I'm going to just throw that away. But this is some gelatinous stuff and some pieces of skin and meat, so I'm just going to pop that in as well. Looks like a little piece of Jell-O, but that's the gelatin that comes from the turkey, so that's going to go in. Okay. So you want to do this broth on a day when you're going to be home. It is a little bit time consuming. It takes some preparation, but mostly it takes just waiting time. But you don't want to be out of the house while you're waiting, because we're going to have broth going on the stove for a while and we need to monitor that. So this is absolutely a perfect day for that. We're in the middle of a snowstorm, and so we're just going to stay put at home, and we're going to enjoy making this roasted turkey broth. So I'm going to put this in the oven, and while it is processing in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, then I'm going to prepare these vegetables. So here's what we're going to be putting in. Right here is our stack of vegetables. I have a couple of large cloves of garlic, 3 onions, some celery, some carrots, and then I have spices. I have a little chili, some thyme, some peppercorns, and some bay leaves. So we'll be back when this has sizzled and baked in the oven, roasted in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll show you what comes next. Well, it has been more than 20 minutes. It's been more like 45 minutes. It took that long for the bones to actually brown. And in fact, I turned my oven up to 450 to make sure that it did that. So I'm going to go get them out of the oven, and we should be able to hear them sizzle when I bring it back over. So yes, it is sizzling. You'll notice now how brown these bones are. The reason that we roast the bones ahead of time is to bring out a much more robust and deep flavor of the bones. When the turkey is roasting in the oven for our Thanksgiving or holiday meal, the bones are all covered with a lot of meat. And now that most of the meat is off and those bones are exposed, the bones prior to this really only got steamed inside the turkey. But now we are actually roasting them, and the bones are quite crisp. So we're going to move the larger chunks over here into our stock pot. Now you'll notice here is the neck. Now, whenever I do a turkey, I know I'm going to be doing broth. I save the neck in a bag in the refrigerator until I'm ready to make the broth. I forgot to add it in at first, and so it is a little undercooked. I'm going to leave it right here because I'm going to process it with the veggies. But look how nice and brown this thigh bone is. That's exactly what we want. This brownness really helps bring out the flavor. And then note, ooh, I almost touched that handle, forgetting it was hot. Oh, the wishbone. Look here. Woohoo! We'll make a wish. Part of the wing with all that crispy skin. There's a lot of drippings here. Piece of the wing. Now there is still meat left on these bones. Not a lot, but some, which is why this is a broth instead of a stock. Stock is made mostly from bones, but broth is made, can be bones, but with meat. Okay, so we've got a lot of these drippings here that look just really wonderful. Now the second thing that we're going to do, now that we have most of this, the bones in the stock pot, is we are going to add our vegetables. So I'm actually not going to put that chili in here, but this was probably 4 stock ribs of celery, 3 onions, and all I've done is just cut them in quarters. And I just took the papery parts off, but this didn't come off very easily. I'm just leaving it there. And so these are coming in here. We're going to roast these veggies too until they get browned. That is going to bring out the flavor of the vegetables more. Here are my garlic cloves, and I'm going to smash those before I put them in here. And then the carrots were already pre-prepared, of course. So that's probably the equivalent of about, I'm going to say 3 medium carrots, maybe 4. Okay, now I'm just going to smash these cloves of garlic. Well, that's not working. Get these over here where you can see them. So I have my flat knife here. This will work better. So I just smashed it. I'm going to put that in. Slippery. Okay, so now we're going to put these in and let them roast until they also get browned. And I'm along with the turkey neck, which is still here. My oven is at 450, and I imagine that this is also going to take about maybe half an hour. So we'll come back when the vegetables are ready to go. I just pulled the veggies out of the oven, and it did take about 30 minutes. Everything is nice and browned, and including the neck. Look how nice and brown this neck got. So very happy with the neck. So we're going to put that in there. And then I'm going to loosen the veggies and just pour them in. And then we're going to see if we can get some of these drippings going. The veggies gave some liquid to the bottom of the pan, which pulled a lot of it loose. Okay, so we're just going to see if we can pour this in. Is very, very hot. So we have the combined veggies and all of the browned bones, a little bit of meat. Now back here to the pan. What we're going to do now is I have about a cup of water. I'm just going to pour here into the bottom. And I am also going to, at this point, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of this tomato paste. Now the tomato paste, the reason that we use tomato paste in brown broth is that it lifts the flavor and makes it rich and robust. So just about 2 tablespoons of this is all we're going to do. Doesn't take very much. And then while we deglaze that, oh darn, I touched that hot handle. As we deglaze this, we're going to mix the tomato sauce in as well. Heat it just a little bit in the hot pan. So this will take a minute or so. This is nearly deglazed, and I won't get everything off the bottom of the pan. Some of it is too stuck too hard, but I got a lot of it. I did want to mention that this tomato paste is home canned in a little weck jar, and we have done a video on it, how to do this too, so if you're interested you might look up that video. So I'm going to now not touch the hot handle again and move all of this over into the pot. As you can see, there's a lot of, almost all of it has been deglazed, so that's good. And here we go. Now the next step is I'm going to fill the pot with water until I just barely cover what is here. So as you can see, everything is just barely covered, and you can probably already see what a brown color the water is already taking on. And that is really good news, because we are going to, this is a brown broth. It's not a yellowish, pale turkey broth at all, but this is a rich, robust brown broth. Now we're going to add 2 or 3 bay leaves, I'm going to put in some peppercorns, not a whole lot, less than a teaspoon. Probably this many peppercorns. That I bet is about a half of a teaspoon of peppercorns, and that's enough. And then some thyme. And at this point you can add whatever, and that's probably about a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more than a teaspoon. And you can add whatever you want at this point. The wonderful thing about making broth is that you can season it to your own taste. And these are tried and true tastes that our family just loves. And so I am now going to put this on the stove, and we will simmer this for 2 to 3 hours. During that time, it's going to be pulling flavor from those browned bones, from the little chunks of meat that are there, and of course from the vegetables. And we should have a delicious broth that we will then pressure can. Now, we can either put it in the freezer or the refrigerator if we're going to use it in just 2 or 3 days, freezer for up to 4 or 5 months, but I want it longer than that. And so I am going to pressure can this because I want it long term out on our food storage shelves. So I will be periodically checking this as it simmers. I'll be taste testing it. It right now probably tastes a little bit too watery, so I'm going to be cooking it down and reducing it until I get just the flavor that I want. And then we will put it in jars and process it. So we will come back when it is all done, and I will explain to you exactly what I did during the next 2 or 3 hours. So see you in a bit. We're back. It has been about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, and we tasted it all the way through. We left the lid on when we were wanting the flavor to develop a little bit more, and then when we wanted it to reduce down, we took the lid off and just let it boil down a little bit. So we're very happy with the flavor, and so the next step now is to get all of these solids out of here, and I'm moving the roasting pan over nearby so I can just plop things right over in there. And then we'll just take all these solids out and then drain it through a strainer, taking the rest out that I can't reach with this grabber. And then we'll fill the jars and process. I'm not retaining any of the meat in this, as many of you will already know. When you do broth like this, the meat gives all of its flavor to the broth and does not become very good anymore. So I don't ever use whatever little scraps of meat might be in here. Looks like our neck fell apart. Now I'm going to use this little tool and get out some of the bigger stuff. Looks like we're going to have maybe between 4 and 5 quarts of this. And what I use this brown turkey broth for is soups and stews, for gravy if the occasion ever presents itself, although we're kind of staying away from foods like that except at holiday time. Spices are floating on the top. Bay leaf. I think that's most of the stuff I can, well, no, it wasn't. Okay. This pan is not hot, so I can pick it up with my bare hands. And I'm just going to move it aside, and I'm going to move my 6-quart pan over here. This pan is hot. Jim coached me a little bit on how to not pick up a hot pan while we were off camera. So I'm going to try to be better at that and not burn myself. So here goes through a strainer to trap out all the other solids. And we have some that were stuck in the bottom of the pan, and that's quite all right. So I'm going to just set that over here. And then stir this around a little bit so that it will drain the rest of the liquid. And this is boiling hot liquid. Beautiful color, golden brown. So the strainer is full of the solids that we didn't trap in any other way. Now there's going to be a little bit of fat on the top of this. If you're really industrious, which I of course am not, I'm more practical, you can put this in the refrigerator overnight and then easily skim the fat off. I'm just going to can it the way it is, and then we will take care of the fat when we open the jars ready for use. So I have a little spill right here I'm going to clean up. And we're going to just go ahead and fill the jars. So I'm just going to use my little dipper here and fill these jars. I do want to leave about 1 inch of head space, trying to keep the rims clean. As soon as I get the level down a little bit, I'm going to pour directly from this pan. It's a little too full right now. And a bit more. So look how pretty this is. Beautiful golden brown. How rich and robust. Okay, now I'm just going to pour. One-inch headspace. I'm using up some of my jars that are just odds and ends regular mouth quart jars. It's not a matching set, but I don't really care. Oh, this just looks so wonderful. It smelled like turkey cooking again all afternoon, just like yesterday, so it was kind of fun. Now we have about this much left. I'm not going to put that, I'm not going to process that. I will just save this and we will use it in soup or something a little bit later. Now I have a vinegar dampened paper towel, and the reason that I use vinegar is to cut the oil on the top. And then a lid and a ring. Okay, that one is ready for the canner. I am getting away from regular mouth jars. I really like the wide mouth when I do the ball canning system. But I never break any jars, hardly ever. So I'm still going to be stuck with these regular mouth jars for quite a while. But they're good for liquids like this. I just can't reach my hand down inside these to get these super clean, so I have to use a combination of brushes and other methods to get in there and get it clean. Now you can see the fat rising to the top here, so when we open this up, we will be discarding that fat. Now the good news is that for these quarts, according to the USDA, poultry broth needs to process in quart size for only 25 minutes. So that's really nice. So we will process these 4 out there for 25 minutes. Oh, well, it would help if I put, the lid on first, then the ring. We'd have a hard time getting a vacuum seal other way. Okay, so we will meet you out at the canner and get this processing. It's cold and it's breezy out here. The snow quit a little while ago, but it's still plenty cold. So I'm going to put these 4 in. There's about 3 inches of water in the bottom of the canner. And we've had the water simmering out here, so it would be ready to receive these. On such a cold day, we don't want the temperature differential to be very much. Next is the lid. And I have the weight right here ready to go. So, as you know, what we do here is we will let the canner vent for 10 minutes to remove all of the air on the inside and replace it with steam. Then I will put the weight right here on the vent, and we'll wait until it comes up to between 13 and 15. And 25 minutes, regardless of what your elevation is. The variable when you do pressure canning is how much pressure. At sea level, you'll only do 10 pounds of pressure. And then we're at 5,000 feet, so we do 13. We keep it between 13 and 15. So then we will process for 25 minutes after it comes up to the proper temperature, and we'll be back when we're ready to take these out of the canner. So see you then. I just took these out of the canner and I brought them in the house because it's already below freezing outside. So here they are, and you can see that they are still boiling. And as I brought them in, all but one of them has already popped. Yep, all but these 3 have popped, and this one still has not popped yet. But they're still very active, and we're going to let them cool in here overnight, and so I'm sure that they will all seal. While these were processing, you may remember that there was a little bit of the broth left over in the pot that I said I would put into soup or make a stew or something with it. Well, after it cooled a little bit, I took another taste, and it was just warm and yummy. And then I took another taste, and oh yes, then another and another, until before I knew it, I had eaten every single bit that was left. And it was so satisfying, so delicious. It has a very robust flavor. This is the first time I have put one of those little green dried chilies in my turkey broth. I got the idea from a recipe online. And boy, I have to tell you that while it doesn't taste a chili taste to the broth, what it did was it lifted the flavor and just made it, I don't know, it just gave it an extra little zing without being at all hot in terms of chili spicy hot. So it was really fabulous. Now this broth is delicious to eat just as is. And so given that we are going into flu and cold season, if you need like a cup of hot broth to soothe your cold or flu, this can be used right out of the jar. So it is a lovely addition to our food storage, and we're happy to have these 4 quarts. So I hope you enjoyed this video on one of the things that you can do with your turkey carcass. And join us again soon. We'll be making more videos and more adventures on Rose Red Homestead.